Megan, join me at the table. So we raised the chairs because one of my biggest pet peeves about these events for the longest time was that the sight lines were really bad. Because if you were sitting in the back, you couldn't see the speakers. So we're up here on high chairs so that you can see us and we can have an open conversation about leadership.
Come on up.
So here we go. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
We're so excited to talk to you, learn more about you, understand your leadership journey.
Yeah.
We have a lot to talk about. We got some really good advice from a survey that we put out to former attendees of these events. And we also got some really great questions from all of you. So I'm excited to kind of dig in and get to the questions. So let's go. Okay, so we're going to start here. Tell us about you and your path to becoming a leader.
Wow, that's a big question. I would say I've been a little bit obsessed with leadership, probably from a very young age. I think I've always just wanted to make an impact and make the most of my time here on earth, if you will. And leadership has always been just the thing. But it was funny driving here this morning on a beautiful Maine morning. I was reflecting on, it was just about 6 years ago that I came to Maine, and I was living in Seattle at the time. But my husband and I had 2 young sons, and my youngest came with me on this trip out to Maine. And he was probably 4 months old at the time. And my mom came with me, and my mom's here today, and she sat in the car with Thomas, who was 4 months old at the time. And I went into that pancake place off of 95. It's like Stacks Pancakes right at the Holiday Inn, maybe there. It's like, and I met with the recruiter for this role. And I don't know if any of you know Deb Gallant, but she is like a serious salesperson. And I just remember eating a giant stack of blueberry pancakes, asking her 16 questions about Southern Maine Agency on Aging, about what it was like to live in Maine, about what the organization and the company needed at the time. And I walked back into the car, and I got in the back seat because my mom was, back there holding Thomas, who was asleep. And I said, "Mom, I'm going to be the CEO of Southern Maine Agency on Aging." And she said, "What are you talking about?" I thought this was just a networking meeting, but I was just so drawn to Maine. I was so drawn to the people. I was so drawn to the mission of the organization and the fact that there were 400 volunteers who were engaged. It was like there was some sort of magic that was really pulling me here. And so it was fun to just reflect on that in coming here this morning.
Super. So I guess talk a little bit about when you stepped into the agency. Like what did that look like?
Yes. What did that look like? So I stepped into the agency in August of 2019. And I followed a really extraordinary leader who was there for 42 years, Larry Gross, who many of you know. And I just remember walking in and again feeling this strong sense of community right from the start. Staff members knew each other really well. The volunteer culture was really embedded into everything that we did. And I was walking into an organization that felt like it was aging. Like, you just walk in and the building hadn't had any upgrades probably in 10 or 15 years. And a lot of processes were still done in a way that maybe seemed a little bit archaic or just different. And so it was exciting to walk into an organization where the people were clearly the asset, and we needed to build the systems and the support around those people to really take the mission even further.
So there's a lot of interest in the room about the work that you do at the Southern Maine Agency on Aging. See, if I say it slow, it comes out okay. So I first want to show a really quick video, and then let's get into talking about the agency itself.
Do you want me to move?
Yep. Should be on now.
You're coming in.
Yep. There we are.
They were looking for volunteers to connect with someone who's socially isolated through the phone. And it just so happened that the guy I got assigned by the agency ended up being Hank. Now, here's a man who has a wealth of experience, obviously been retired now and has been a widower for 25 years, and still really interested in making life meaningful and valuable to someone.
I have 9 grandchildren, and everybody's busy, and it's normal. So it's nice to be able to sit and talk. They always ask me, are you going to be on with Jim this week? I said, yeah, we keep it going, and I love it.
It's my understanding that social isolation is probably the biggest contributor to one's well-being as one ages. So it's essentially, can you connect in a meaningful way that really provides a benefit to both parties? And that's what I think, the agency is trying to model hundreds of times over for other individuals in the state of Maine.
Have a good one.
All right, my friend.
Yes,
Take care of
sir.
yourself.
See you in 2 weeks then.
Oh my gosh, that gives me the chills so much. I also just have to pause for a second to say that I think all of us aspire to that being our next chapter as we step out. And our former head of advertising is here, and we know that she leads your volunteer organization. So we're just another proof point that we're all connected in so many ways here in Maine, especially through leadership. So anyway, talk a little bit about the agency and the mission and what that means to you.
Yes. And thank you so much for sharing Hank's story, which is just one of my favorites. And what you don't see in that video, but I think is important to share, is Hank met his phone pal, Jim, right before the pandemic. So everything was done over the phone. And then a few months into the pandemic, we received a grant to buy some tablets so that people could actually see each other on screen and have that connection, especially if they were isolated. And to hear Jim describe what it is like to teach someone to use technology when you can't be there in person with them. So they would be on the phone and he would be coaching Hank on how to plug things in and where to press the button. And now to be able to see Hank do that just so fluidly and off the cuff is amazing. And I'd also share about Hank that, I think one of the beautiful things about our organization is, yes, people come in through one door, maybe, like through the Phone Pals program. But then what it exposed them to was that Jim is also an AgeWell volunteer, which means he teaches a lot of the balance classes. He helps coordinate some of the Tai Chi classes that we do. And so Jim was really encouraging Hank to actually try one of our classes. It was one of our first ones in the Lakes region after the pandemic. And Hank's kids said, oh, Hank will never make it. I don't know if he should be out so early in the morning. I don't know what it's going to be like to get there. And sure enough, Hank made 11 out of the 12 classes in the Lakes region. He met people. He got more connected to his community. And there's so many programs that we offer, so many services. And again, people come in one door, but really when you break it down, it is so simple. It is that people want a connection. People want to be seen, they want to be heard, and they want to know that they still matter. Even if they're at home isolated and not getting out as much, even if they're not seeing their grandkids as much as they'd like to. So that's really the core of what we do.
Talk a little bit about the culture of your organization.
Well, again, I use the word magic, and I will continue to use the word magic because I think our team has really set the culture for many decades. And so it was really there even before I started. And you'll hear people say when they start our organization, I can't believe how helpful everybody is. I can't believe how I can just walk into someone's office and ask for something. I send out an email and I get 4 responses really quickly. So there's this amazing sense of camaraderie. And then I think, what my vision has really been is how do we propel, again, this incredible team to set our sites even bigger and even higher, because the need is only increasing, right? And so I think one of the things that we have definitely done is we've incorporated so much data into our decision making. And, I'm looking in the audience and seeing one of our most experienced social workers who many of you know her is, she's incredible. And she now embraces data and surveys and what is the impact of this work that we do. So I think data and making strong decisions through the help of our team has been huge. I think we also have embraced a culture of really jumping in and being flexible to meet the need. So whereas before we may have needed, a 10-page proposal and a grant report and all these things put together, now it's kind of like, go. And so that's a good thing, but it also makes people a little bit nervous, myself included. Sometimes I think, whose idea was that anyway, right? But I think the culture has really just continued to propel the mission even further.
I feel like this is the pinnacle question. I mean, talk a little bit about how the impacts of Maine affect your business and your decision making and how you think about that.
I mean, I think Maine is one of the best places to be in a leadership role. I mean, I look out in this audience and see fellow peers who have been nonprofit leaders, are current nonprofit or corporate leaders. So there's this sense of we're all in this together, right? And that has been huge. I think, we're very aware of our increasing needs, right? We live in a really rural state. People have a lot of chronic conditions. There's incredible social isolation. And so depression, anxiety, mental health needs are high right now. And I think one of the beautiful things about Maine is that there's this really strong civic engagement. And we have a lot of volunteers who are here in the audience today. So if you're interested in volunteering, we can match you together. But people really step up and want to take part in the community and want to know what's happening and want to know how they can help. So we have that. Second, there's a lot of people moving to Maine to retire here. And that means that we kind of have created this whole, strong community of people who are educated, who are invested, who want to learn more, who are really curious. So it makes our ability to come up with innovative solutions like that much better. So there's this real, I think, magic of Maine and working together. Do you sense that too in your role?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
We, at our place, we're really focused on listening to the community, of tapping into the leaders and the people who feel strongly about journalism and telling the right stories about Maine in all of our communities. So yeah, I mean, we share a lot of that. We're in a period of transition, which is interesting. Change is really hard, but we are very focused on knowing what our mission is, which is to cover our communities and to connect people to the places that they call home, and to tell all of the stories that we need to tell across Maine, whether it's hyper local in specific communities or statewide, and rallying everybody around that mission and being really focused on that as the end goal, has to be at the forefront of everybody's mind. So, man, yeah, it's all about community, yeah. Right? So, I guess tell us what a typical day looks like for you.
Oh.
Just keep moving around.
Yeah. So I'm a mom, so I have 3 kids, 8, 6, and 3, and my son William is here today, which is very special. Yay! So the morning usually starts with, making breakfast for the kiddos and getting the boys on the bus, and getting, all of us organized to start the day. And then I think in this role, I mean, in terms of open door, it's just, that's what it's like. I mean, I'm in meetings from, morning to night, and spending a lot of time with people. And I think what's great about this role in this organization is that we have so many stakeholders, right? We have our clients, which are older adults, and we also have all of the family caregivers that we work with and have support groups with and coach and help them. We have our staff members, we have our volunteers, we have an incredible board and advisory council. And then we have all of these community partners who really come together to make this work happen. And so it means that every day is exciting. There's never been a day where I'm like, oh, that was kind of boring. Like, it just doesn't happen. So I think a typical day is full of a lot of connections with people, understanding what's happening, connecting with my family, hopefully a little bit of connecting with myself from time to time, and just, yeah, being really, really honored to serve in this role.
I don't know, I crash when I get home at night. I don't know about you, and I don't have 3 young kids, so kudos to you. I guess let's talk about work-life balance. Being a working mom, 3 young boys. Like, how do you make those? You know, how do you balance it all?
Yeah, well, you don't. So, so we'll just put that out. So, I mean, I think I like the analogy that it's kind of like a pendulum that swings, right? And there are going to be times where you really need to put 150% into work because there is a significant change or transition, or something's happening, and then the pendulum might switch the other way because something's happening at home and you just need a little bit more time and energy there. But I think in general, it's all about integrating all of this, and keeping my kids apprised about what I'm doing at work and why it matters, and vice versa, and bringing some of the, elementary school magic into work too. So yeah, I don't know. I'm happy to take advice from the crowd in terms of work-life balance.
Any advice? Anyone figure it out? I mean, I guess that's a good segue to how would you describe your leadership style?
Great question. I mean, let's see. My leadership style is it's kind of what you see right now. It's, open, listening, wanting to understand, being connected and having a sense of a shared purpose, goal, and mission. And it's really showing up every single day. I mean, I really believe 80% of leadership is just showing up, even when you are scared shitless, or even when you don't know what's going to happen, or when there's a decision coming and you've been weighing it for 7 weeks, and waking up at night thinking about it. It's honestly just showing up. So there you go.
Amen. Amen to that. We are showing up, right, Allie? We are showing up. I think an insider gave us this question.
Oh, no. This is my sister. The hardest question.
How do you respond to constructive criticism? Which I just think is hilarious coming from your sister.
Love it. I know. Am I responding to enough of your constructive criticism, sister? So, I mean, I love to end a meeting with, what should I stop doing? What should I start doing? Or what should I do differently? So I'm really wanting to consistently incorporate that communication so that people know where I stand, and I also know where people stand. I mean, I'd rather always know what's going on in someone's head, or what they're concerned about, or what they're weighing, or what they're really passionate about, than not know. So I think, constructive feedback should just be part of the regular conversation every day. And that's how I think of it. Yeah. And then my team will let me know later if that's true or not.
Megan, I'm so impressed with your intentionality. It's one of the things that I know I strive for in my leadership, especially now as I am leading our organization. I have just tended to be someone who shoots from the hip, makes pretty quick decisions, can move through things, pretty with like a pretty clear idea of where we're going. But I need to learn how to kind of like take a breath and be intentional. And so thank you for that bit of inspiration as we sit here and talk about it. What's on your mind? What are you concerned about? Like, what's keeping you up at night?
probably the same thing that's keeping all of you up at night right now. These are really, really challenging times and not like any of us have seen before. So I think, again, knowing that here in Maine and at wonderful event venues like this one, and knowing what a strong network we have to rely on each other. Obviously I would be remiss if I didn't just acknowledge the, federal administration and everything that has, the upheaval and the chaos and the confusion. And I think what we're really striving to do at our organization is to not mirror that same chaos and confusion, but to really stay focused on our strategic plan, which is all about making sure people are connected to one another, that they're not socially isolated, that they have a program, a volunteer, a service that they can rely on. And we're also really excited because we're opening up a new center in Portland this year. So we have been operating out of Biddeford for the last 4 years, and we actually are working towards opening a center in Portland this year, and we opened another one last year in Sanford Springvale. So, similar to your landscape of trying to decide what should be delivered in person via paper and what should be delivered online, we experience that too, because a lot of our clients can do things online and can find their best Medicare plan online. However, a lot of our clients want to be in person and sit down with someone and have, the entire options talked through with them, ask questions, develop a relationship with their volunteers. So we're aiming to do both, right? We're aiming to have these digital options available, but then really show up in communities and work with communities on behalf of our clients.
So I'll ask you the same question that you asked me earlier. How do you balance that? Like, how do you make decisions about where to put your resources to balance where, like, meeting people where they are relative to their needs?
Did I really ask you that question?
Well, I mean, you asked me that question. You asked me that question relative to print and digital and media, right? Like, so we were talking about the balance and really like wanting to show up for people how they want you to show up, but needing also to understand what that means from a bottom line perspective, and how you drive your strategy forward.
Right. So one thing I would say and acknowledge, and I think one thing that's just wonderful about the nonprofit sector is that I have a board, right? And so I have this, group of 15 mentors and advisors like already built into the work that I'm doing every day. And that makes it a really fun and energizing environment to be in. And it means that, I'm consistently weighing all of these other perspectives that I hadn't before. And same goes for our leadership team, same goes for our volunteers. Like, there's input coming at us all the time. But I think, this year what we're excited about is working really closely with our other agency on aging partners here in the state of Maine. So we're one of 5 agencies on aging. And we currently have an association, and I'm the board president this year. And we're working on what's called the Older Mainers Act, which is a bill to advance home and community-based services on behalf of older Mainers and family caregivers. So that has really been an opportunity for us to just have more conversations and let people know that there is much more to aging than nursing homes or assisted living or institutional care, right? 85% of people want to age at home in their own community, in their own town. So we have to make sure that we're putting the infrastructure on that side. The other thing that we're working on, in addition to building up some new centers, means that we also have more fee-for-service programming. So we have really strong adult day programs for people with dementia and Alzheimer's, and we'll continue to do more to wrap around those clients and their caregivers. And then, of course, philanthropic funding is huge to what we do, because things like Meals on Wheels and our Medicare counseling and all of our case management services, we can offer those at free or reduced rates for a lot of our clients. And it's really because the community supports this work so much. So continuing to spend time with our incredible philanthropic community is really important this year.
So good. What scares you?
I mean, besides what we already talked about, um, I think when people talk about aging and living longer, it's really seen in a negative light. And what I'm hoping we can really do is start to flip the script, because people are living so much longer than they ever did before. And it creates this amazing opportunity. I mean, we've basically all been added 10 to 20 years to our lives. But it means that our systems and our structures and our healthcare hasn't really caught up with that need. So we have to build the communities and the infrastructure and the support that we want in order to live, where we want to live and stay in our own community. So I think it's an exciting time, but it's also scary, knowing that the fastest growing cohort of the homeless population right now is older adults. It's people over the age of 50. It's scary to know that people are not getting their basic needs met, and they're living in our own backyards. It's really scary to know that, that our healthcare system is already overburdened. And so we're really trying to fill in the gaps on the social care side. But we have a lot of work to do. So I think the need is scary, but it's also incredibly energizing. And I think you can't open up the paper without reading something related to aging, longevity, and care and where we are. So it's an exciting time to be here, but yeah, it's the hot seat for sure.
It is, and I guess when you think about stepping into all of that in your workplace, like how do you manage that for yourself? Like, how do you tackle these scary things in a way that that makes it easy to or not easy to step through those things that really scare you, like from a personal perspective, like how do you approach those things?
I mean, just saying I'm really scared about X, Y, or Z, is usually a great conversation starter. And I've definitely been known to start leadership team meetings there. Or how, consistently asking, how does the external environment now influence our strategy and our plan? Do we still keep marching forward? Is there something that needs to be tweaked? Is there something that needs to be changed? Is there something that we thought was working really well that actually isn't? So again, it's just showing up. Yeah, and being present and being in the moment and, keeping your eye on the big picture and the incredible, needs and opportunities, but being realistic and being real. Yeah. I mean, my team is not surprised when the phone rings and then they're like, okay, what is it, Meg? I'm like, well, I was just thinking about this thing. Have you been thinking about that too? So really picking up the phone a lot and just talking.
Sure.
Yeah.
This one wasn't on our list, but how do you approach difficult conversations with your team?
I mean, I approach them as a great opportunity, right? Put something on the table, right? I'm seeing this. Are you seeing this too? Here's what I'm noticing. What's it like from your perspective? And also knowing that, in a difficult conversation, emotions might be running high. So I always like to ask at the end of a conversation around feedback or an outcome that we didn't expect. We just talked about a lot. What are you taking away from this conversation? Because the person might be taking away something totally different than what, I had walked into that conversation about, but that's okay, right? We've learned something in that moment. Yeah.
How do you think, as you became a leader, you got the confidence to be able to lead?
How do I think I got the
So when you show up for a difficult conversation like that, something in your path got you to the place that you had the confidence to be able to show up every way that your team needs you to, whether it's difficult or otherwise. And so I guess I'm just curious about, like, was there a moment in time that you realized, like, I've got this, or was it experience over experience? Like,
Such a good question. I mean, I think a lot of it just came with practice, because I quickly learned, as you know, I was in my last organization for almost a decade. And so I really grew up with a lot of my colleagues there and had new challenges or new teams or new programs. And I think I quickly learned that the sooner you bring up something and talk about it, just the better that is. So I think it's like a muscle that you just consistently have to practice and try and try new things, which sometimes, fail horribly, but hey, at least you tried. Like, just putting those things out there.
sure, thank you. What would you tell your early career self?
I think I would tell my earlier career self, keep going. Yeah. I think I am always trying to stay really humble, trying to stay really hungry towards what I'm after or what goal or mission we're working towards. And relationships really are key to any business. And so that's always kind of where I start in any new challenge or role. Like, who do I need to know? Who's already doing this? Who could advise our team or our program? And who else do we need to be talking to? Yeah.
How are you preparing for your successful aging journey?
I recommend as much sleep as possible. Sleep is really important. It's really, the basics: exercise, eating well. And as you saw in the video today, I mean, the more you're connected to other people, the stronger and better outcomes you're going to have as an individual. So really nurture your own. Barbara was using the word tribe earlier, that our agency and our volunteers have become her new tribe. We all have these connections and community that we rely on, and investing in that is so important moving forward.
So good. I want to open it up for questions. Anyone have questions for me or for Megan? Go ahead, Jess.
So in your daily routines, like you just talked about, what are some things that molded you to be who you are today, as far as like what your daily routine is and how you've become so successful today?
Yeah, so she asked about what are some daily routines that you have relied on that have been really important. So I am a big believer in habits and routines, and meditation is huge for me, or breath work, and really just tuning into my body. So starting my day with like a 5-minute meditation or gratitude practice, really important. I am a big writer. So, consistently just like journaling or having the notebook open, like what's coming up in my brain or my head. I also have always loved music. So songwriting and performing music is really important to me and my core. And I think just, consistently trying to be in the moment with whatever I'm doing or whoever I'm with is the habit that has served me the best. Yeah. That I'm always practicing on. And it's interesting, like my husband, I'll be like, so what are you thinking about? And he's like, nothing. Like, really? Because I have like 7 or 8 things that I could just put pen to paper right now. So my brain's always going.
Yes. You mentioned that you are seeing a lot of older adults who are becoming homeless,
Yeah.
right? And when I was on your website, I noticed you have something called money minders. And you also mentioned about a bill in Augusta that you are trying to rally behind. But my question is, what type of partnerships do you have in the region? Because I'm thinking transportation, I'm thinking about housing. I'm thinking about, we are talking about people being able to age in their homes. But then when you go and have these conversations, they can't afford the taxes in their towns at times.
Right.
So I know there's a lot in this work, and even though we love to have people who come and retire here, people who move here, myself, I came to this state 13 years ago, but as I really continue to have conversations and engage in this region, I think that we need a lot of collaborations across the board. I'm thinking about private and public sectors. If we really need system change, positive system change, we have to all work all of us together. And that is something really that we are trying, but we haven't gotten there. So as a leader of this organization, how do you think we might get there? It's a big question.
No
It's
pressure.
a really big question, and I would love to get your card after this because I think everything you just described is spot on and so true and definitely what I am witnessing every day. So I would say the first thing is that awareness really is the first step. So many transportation providers are much more aware of the older adult population today than they were 10 years ago and how unique the needs are and how stops have to change and where sidewalks are located has to be thought differently, right? But we cannot do this all alone. So when I think about our partners, I think about first and foremost, our advocacy partners. So other organizations like AARP and the Maine Council on Aging, and our community action partners who are doing so much advocacy locally and statewide as well. But then I think a lot about the service providers that we work with. So as the Agency on Aging, it's part of our mission to not just provide these services, but to consistently coordinate and convene and understand what is currently available within our service area. So we have a networking event that we put on every other month called The Exchange, where we're bringing service providers together to talk about and understand a current topic or issue. We're starting to do that specifically in Sanford, Springvale now. But you're right. I mean, I would love to see more people who don't think of themselves as an aging organization, but actually are so parallel to what we do. Yeah. So I think you're making a really, really important piece that needs to be considered much more differently moving forward. Thank you.
Anyone else? Go ahead, Susan. My Oprah moment. Here we go.
Good morning, great to see you. Two questions, they're connected. I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about stakeholders of caregivers. I know I am not entirely clear on what support programs or how do caregivers play into your strategy, your programming, et cetera. And I'm going to push back a little bit more on the question about how you envision your successful aging journey. Yes, which I planted because I'm she busted. And so I'm going to bring it to a different level, which is, are you and your family yet in a position of caregiving? And I am wondering what conversations you are having with your elders about their aging experience that you would wish to share with us. I'm curious about what those conversations might look like. Thanks.
Thanks, Susan. Great questions. So thank you, first of all, for bringing up family caregivers. So when we talk about family caregivers, we're talking about children of loved ones, siblings of loved ones, spouses of loved ones, who are caring for an older adult. And here in Maine, family caregivers really are the backbone of our long-term services and support system, without a doubt. We have 166,000 unpaid family caregivers who are doing the work that our systems have not caught up with. So simply by supporting our family caregivers, we can leave a huge positive dent in our systems of care here. At our agency, we offer a number of support groups for family caregivers. We have specific wellness-based classes and series for our family caregivers because they need another outlet. They need somebody to talk to. We also have had an incredible respite program that we worked with the state of Maine on for 2 years, which was very successful and will hopefully be reinstated next year, which reimbursed people for the cost of caregiving. It was hugely successful. So there are a number of programs we offer for family caregivers, and they're really, the landscape is changing dramatically. So in terms of my own journey as a family caregiver, again, 90% of this is just normalizing it for people, right? Like I will say to Sean at times, so just so you know, if I get dementia and I'm this age, here's what I want for my care. I want to make sure that you don't lose yourself in all of this journey, right? Really normalizing this in our conversations. You know, my own mother is navigating her care journey, and it's been interesting to watch how my siblings have all had very different responses and reactions to that. And so I find myself, you know, working my leadership muscle in that route too, right? Like, wow, that seems to really be bringing up a lot for you. Why? or really reminding my siblings that at the end of the day, you know, our parents get to decide, you know, the older adult gets to make the decision. So as much as we want to just make it our own thing, it's actually not about us. It's really about what our parent or our loved one wants. And we have to support them in that journey. So thanks, Susan.
Oh, you are doing such important work as a caregiver. Thank you for the work that you're doing. It is so important. Other questions? We have a couple more minutes.
I have a question. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Let's go there and then I'll.
Sorry.
I would love to hear more about recruitment of volunteers. Like this is such an intimate volunteer experience, right? And so what's compelling about people signing up?
Yeah, we have just an incredible base of volunteers. So currently we have 370 active volunteers. And I would say most of our volunteers are over the age of 60 themselves. So they are really looking to be reinvested in community. And interestingly, just over the last 4 months, we are seeing even more people show up to our volunteer orientation and 101. So we hope that even more people will continue to come out of the woodwork, because making 2 phone calls a week is not a lot, right? I mean, that's something that a lot of us can squeeze into our work, like the Phone Pals video that we showed earlier. And I think, you know, similar to family caregiving, volunteers is going to be an increasing area for us when we think about serving just many people, because we don't have enough paid professionals. We don't have enough PSS workers to go into people's homes and help with all of the intricacies of care. So we're going to rely more and more on volunteers and on technology to really make sure people are getting what they need at home and in the community. Does that answer your question?
It did.
Okay.
Okay, one more.
I hope you volunteer.
Megan, as you look into the future for Southern Maine Agency on Aging, do you see it carrying on with the existing programs, or do you see any new programs that you might implement?
Yeah, great question. I would see a lot of new programs, because again, you can't be in this field and not think about what more could we be doing. I think already in the past few years, we've had an incredible pilot working with legal services for the elders and a couple other of our local housing partners to make sure that when people receive an eviction notice, that they not only have an attorney on their side from the beginning, but they also have a Southern Maine Agency on Aging caseworker who can be actively looking at other solutions or other opportunities for housing from the very beginning. I think, again, the current environment is a little bit tumultuous in terms of some of our funding sources, but that really offers us an opportunity to have direct to client services. So in a way, federal government is B2B, right? So this is our opportunity to actually go right to consumer and offer more services based on what people want, not just based on a program that was very successful in 1965.
One more audience question. Anyone?
Thanks for spending your morning with us.
Okay, but I have one more. I have one more question for you. Tell us about your best day at work.
There are so many. It brings me a lot of joy to see our team members who have really just owned their own leadership and management style through the years. And I think one of the most incredible times was in 2021 when the vaccination had just come out and older adults were being prioritized, but they could not get a vaccination appointment. And our team just really stepped in to consistently call people and make sure that they were getting an appointment over the phone because they couldn't access technology or they couldn't seem to get it to work. So that was a very special time because, as you all know, we had been behind our closed doors, not in open doors, for a long time. And so being able to actively work on getting people vaccinated was really, really fun.
Thank you again for this incredibly important work that you're doing and for spending your morning with us. Thank you, Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare, and all of our sponsors, and all of you for showing up this morning and being part of it.